as far as, and that moves everybody. You know, it moves you. What was a moment that moved you in sports? I'm kind of catching you off guard here, but as you watched it or something, because that is a historic moment in baseball that is part of the lore, and we all have those moments. What was one of yours? Step into the Fieldhouse, your front row seat to legendary victories and untold stories. Hey, I'm your host, Lance Lunner, breaking down sports from the inside out, along with co-host Jimmy Lackey. It's more than just a game. It's the Fieldhouse Podcast. Hey, welcome into the Fieldhouse Podcast. We are a production of the Kids Inc. Sports Network. Proud to be part of that. I'm one of the co-hosts, Lance Lunner. We have Jimmy Lackey here, the other co-host. Jimmy, you know the question I always ask is, what's the best thing that happened to Jimmy Lackey today?
Well, she's offset, but Maddie the Doodle's in my office this morning. She came to work with me. We're going to go get a shot after work. And
So Maddie, wait, Maddie the Doodle?
Maddie the Doodle.
Wow, Maddie, how many animals have ever been have you run across that have your same first name?
Countless people.
Okay, countless.
We have, I told you, we have three Maddies here. We got this Maddie Sanchez is back at work now. She just had a baby and she came back this week.
So that was a popular name for a while, Maddie?
It was I told Madeline is Madeline, and that was my grandmother's name.
Yeah, I love the name Maddie.
I'm very fond of Madeline.
Yeah. Madeline, and they shortened it to Maddie.
Yeah, my grandmother was a classy lady.
That's cool. Yeah. That is very cool. Yeah, I like the name a lot. Are we losing all the Jimmies of the world?
Let's hope so.
You don't like that name, Jim, Jimbo, Jimmy?
There's a long story behind
Jimmaroo,
it, but I
whatever
go by Jimmy, and there's a long story. We won't get into that. But I will say, if you notice on the front, if you're watching on
you're
watching on YouTube today.
That was next.
I brought out a total on the last podcast about having caps made for all my grandkids when they're born, and then I have mugs made for them when they turn a year old. So there's the collection for you to see today. But the first grandkid is named James. He's my namesake.
Okay.
And so what was really cool.
Is your first name really James?
It is.
Okay.
And so here's the unique thing. So when Kim and I met, her dad is James, her brother's James, and I'm James.
Oh my gosh.
But her dad always went by James. Her brother always went by Jim. And I've always gone by Jimmy. So there's never been a mix-up.
That is pretty cool.
We didn't have to change anything. It's just pure coincidence that that's the way it worked out. But yeah, we're all three named James, and my first grandson's named after me. So that's pretty cool.
So I have probably the most unusual parents' names in the history of names, okay? And my dad's name was Elmer.
With an I?
No, Elmer.
Oh.
Elmer.
Okay.
It's a strong German name, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
But Elmer Phillip. So they gave me the middle name of Philip. Okay. Philip's my middle name. The biblical name, Philip, because my mom's dad was a Methodist minister. So, but her name is Dorcas.
I knew another.
And that is
Dorcas.
a strong biblical name. If you know, she, helped.
We had a
raise
professor at WT. Her first name was Dorcas. I'm trying to remember her last name.
You don't. But how about that? Going around saying your mom and dad are named Elmer and Dorcas.
Yeah.
Needless to say, none of the grandkids, none of the kids are named Elmer or Dorcas.
Yeah.
Which when we look back, when you get older, you said, why didn't they just throw that in as a middle name to keep those alive? But
yeah. There's. It's funny how names have changed, and then how some.
So you think there aren't many Jimmies now anymore? Is that a name that's being lost?
I think most of them go by Jim.
Yeah.
I think most of them.
You think they still use that
name?
It's
like Tim,
It used to be Jim.
They were
Bob.
Timmy when they were young. They want to be called Tim now. I've just always been Jimmy, and there's reasons for that in the background. But as I got older, and then once Kim and I met, it worked out perfect because James, Jim, and Jimmy are three different people, and we're all Jameses.
Being in the newspaper business as long as it, obviously everybody they preach you. This is just journalism 101 or any life 101 if you want the truth. Everybody only has one thing, and that's their name.
Yep.
So pronounce it correctly and say it correct. And spell it correctly. And I had my spelling was a challenge for me, believe it or not. And so I had to really work hard on that. And misspelling a name was like the worst sin I could have in journalism.
Yeah, because we didn't have spell check back in those days.
No spell check. But anyway, but that is the most important thing. But the spellings of names today.
We could take our database
Yes.
and just run a list of first names and print a book.
Yeah.
Print a book.
Yeah, that's amazing. Yeah, the names are amazing.
And I'm sure
I like the creativity of parents now. Some of them are like, wow, that is just too creative.
I won't say who, but I'll say was at a school.
Yeah.
And if you're out there listening, please don't take offense to this. Absidy, first name Absidy.
Absidy.
ABCD.
Wow. Never heard that one.
Me either.
I have seen an I dot period. I.
Mm-hmm.
You know, just I dot period is their name, but the period has to go with it. I. You know,
I Lance. I Jimmy.
Yeah. You know, one of the greatest football names ever though was I Am Hip. Do you remember that guy?
I remember that a little.
He was a
bit.
running back from Nebraska.
I kind of remember that.
But
yeah.
I period M period, that was his name. I Am. But the last name was Hip.
Now,
so I'm sure everybody called
back
him.
in the Big 8 days.
Yeah.
I do remember.
Yeah,
that.
great name. Names are important, obviously. Lance, you know, is hit. It's never been like the most popular name. It's kind of a hit.
One of my best friends growing up, his name's Lance.
Yeah, there's a few in there. You know what I mean? Lancelot. You know, things like that. So
if I go to email and I type Lance in, either you come up or he comes up.
That's cool.
It's one of those two.
Yeah. There's not a bunch of us. Yeah. But you run across them every once in a while. You know what I mean? So, yeah. Hey, we have a tradition here on the Fieldhouse Podcast. This is podcast number 48. We got to try to hit a grand slam with number 50, I'm thinking, Jimmy. And you know a lot of famous people and a lot of people. So the pressure's on this,
see
man.
If we can get us a guest for number 50.
Yeah.
I'll go to work on that.
Okay, yeah. But we have a tradition here.
Put that on my to-do list.
I'll try to work on it as well. Okay.
I've got there.
If we can have
I've got somebody we're going to ask right there.
Okay. All right. We'll keep that a mystery. But it is 48, and we come up with players we either played with or you know over the years. A favorite 48 of ours. This is Fieldhouse Podcast number 48, and this is a really hard one for me. Maybe not for you, being a Cowboys fan, but I really had to stretch on this one. But I want to start with you. Who's your 48 today?
Moose. It's got to be Moose.
Moose Johnston.
Gerald Johnston.
Yeah.
He he's just one of those workhorses, and he turned into a great broadcaster too.
Really did.
But
really analytical.
Yeah, but
his style.
He just did his job. You know, one of those guys that, and you heard the crowd. You know, they Moose.
Yeah.
But he was one of those guys that he knew his role. It wasn't going to be at the top of the list, but he was good at his job.
Yeah.
And man, you need a good fullback for those good running backs, and he had a pretty good one behind him, and he had a pretty good QB, and he had some receivers, but he just did his job and did it well. And 48's a unique number.
You know,
it is. Not a lot of people wear 48. I didn't even know. I didn't look at the book. See
yeah, there's not many. 48's really one of the most undecorated numbers in the history of sports. But I will say this: Moose Johnston was a fullback, obviously, for Emmitt Smith for the Cowboys. But I'm going to go a little off. And I'm going to go a little off on this, and I'm going to go with the car. You know, and I'm you know, I enjoy NASCAR. I'm not a big NASCAR nerd or anything like that, but Jimmy Johnson, the 48 car.
There's the face.
There's our two.
There's
wow.
the face of 48 right
yeah,
there.
Yeah,
Jimmy Johnson.
And 48, obviously one of the great car drivers in the history of NASCAR. But 48, I'll go Jimmy Johnson. And those drivers are known for their numbers. You know, they say, hey, here's 48. You know, the 48, they'll say that. But Jimmy Johnson with 48.
Roosevelt Leaks.
Wow,
that's going back in the black.
That is a name, yeah. Who else? Anybody else? Lee Smith, the reliever for the Cubbies, wore 48. I do remember that when he was a Cub.
There's only 2 pages of 48s. He's not on here. I'll be honest with you, some of these names I don't recognize.
Yeah, no, there's not many great 48s, which is, it happens. You know what I mean? It happens. So, but anyway,
Roosevelt Leaks. What? That's a blast from the past.
That's a great running back. So, you know, with the sports kind of weeding out now. We lost Groover, we lost Nazareth. As we speak in the baseball playoffs, that's our last two official teams. We have the Panhandle Sports Hall of Fame coming up here in a few days, things like that. But it's kind of died off. My question was going to open up with the NBA is obviously kind of in the spotlight now. The NHL as well. There's nothing like playoff. One thing we learned, though, Jimmy, when you watch these playoff games like the NBA and the NHL, how good they really are. They just can't do this for 100, I'm exaggerating, but for 100 games during the regular season. Your body cannot do this. But when you see them playing at this level, now you know how great the game can be. Yeah. And I'm talking about the game of basketball at the pro level, and which I'm much more of a college basketball fan.
Yeah, me too.
And then the NHL, when they really are playing at their peak and going all in, it's amazing. But my question to open up with is, what are the powers that are going to be in the NBA if we have an Oklahoma City and an Indiana final?
It's probably going to happen. It's 3-1 in both of them, if I'm not mistaken. So, yeah, it's probably going to happen. The media markets are going nuts. They're going, oh my gosh, the big wigs are going. That's not where the dollars are, and that's a chance you take when you bring in these teams. And of course, I'm all over it for Oklahoma City. I think that would be outstanding for them to have the opportunity to play in the finals and get that national exposure. And Indiana's been there before, but yeah, it's not what they draw up when they get the season started for sure. I suspect it's not what they drew up.
Yeah, they
want the Knicks. They want the Knicks.
Yeah, they want the Knicks in there for sure because everybody's going to be talking about all the talk shows. They're are in New York or L.A. or wherever. But I will say this: it is encouraging. Let's give credit to the NBA. I'm really harsh on the way they kind of run their draft. I just don't agree with the lottery. I think the worst team deserves the first pick automatically.
Yep, I agree.
The NFL does that right. But we are seeing some parity, and I think that's are you a dynasty guy or a parity guy? The reason I'm saying this, it's not fixed. It's not as fixed as we think maybe. So I'm glad to see teams that don't have the big backing of these big cities a chance to win an NBA championship.
Yeah. My first, and I don't know if I'd call it dynasty, but it really kind of was, growing up, was around July 4th every year watching Bjorn Borg fall to his knees, winning Wimbledon. That was one of my favorite things. And I remember
Wooden racket.
He won like 5 in a row.
Maybe so, yeah.
And then didn't win it one year. Was it McEnroe that came in and beat him? And he didn't get to drop to his knees. I mean, I looked so forward to him winning that and just dropping to his knees. And that's the first real dynasty that I remember as a young person.
Yeah.
Because I think he won 5 Wimbledons in a row. And that was such a big deal in the middle of the summer, because like you said, sports is kind of pared down in the summertime. And by then, they're in the middle of baseball, nearing the All-Star break. And so, but Wimbledon was such a big deal, and that old school wooden racket type play back in the day was a big deal. And Borg, he was. There's a really good documentary with him and McEnroe that everybody ought to watch, and about the relationship between the two of them. It's really interesting because Bjorn Borg kind of became a recluse.
Yeah,
and if you go out there, it's one of those 30 for 30s or 60s, E60s, or one of those type deals. It's really, really good. It's a documentary on Borg, and it's worth the watch.
Yeah, I didn't know that about him. Obviously, I mean, Borg was the man, and then McEnroe came around.
Mm-hmm.
But Wimbledon, where do you rank that as? I don't know what I'm trying to rank, but I will say this. I mean, for the casual tennis fan, that's probably the biggest tournament.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
the big money's at the U.S. Open, but Wimbledon it's kind of like the Masters. It's kind of like the Masters.
Yeah,
exactly. It's got its little
grass courts for starters. Like you're back in the day, you're like, they actually play on grass.
I remember the days Johnny Carson went every year to Wimbledon.
Wow.
He was always at Wimbledon.
Yeah.
And those people, and then the Duke, and the formalities of it that they have, and it's just got its own little flavor. It's kind of like the Masters.
Yeah,
it's a little different than the rest of them.
Yeah, it used to be such a serve and volley. I mean, I'm not an expert on the game of tennis, but the court is a lot faster than you think. That's why it was such a serve and volley. Things have slowed up. Everything has slowed up. I remember when we had Alex O'Brien on our podcast talking about the uniqueness of the clay court, really, because you're sliding into the ball.
Yeah.
We're used to getting to a point and making a move. And he thinks that's why those people like a Nadal who grew up playing on these courts, you get bad hops. Heaven forbid a bad hop in a pro tournament, but you learn how to to move to a ball without being so mechanical and set with your footwork.
Did you see the deal over the weekend where they had the big tennis guys together? Was it Nadal they were honoring is it the French Open that's going on?
Uh-huh.
And they had Federer there, they had Murray there, and one other who would have been who'd be the other big one?
I'm not sure.
Nadal. They were honoring him because he'd retired, and it was Federer and Murray, and I'm leaving a big one out.
Djokovic,
that was it.
Okay.
They had all four of them there, and they were there to honor Nadal.
That's cool.
Because he had announced his retirement, last year. And they wanted to honor him at the French Open, and they had him out. And, boy, he was in tears, had his kid out there with him. It was pretty impressive for those four guys to all be together. And
I'll have to go watch that back.
Yeah, it was really interesting. There was a lot of history there and a lot of wins.
American tennis, speaking of that, it's kind of we don't have that person anymore. You know what I mean? We have a lot of really good players. We don't have that, like superstar.
Well, it's like golf.
Yeah.
The parity in the games has become
Scheffler, though, is taking over.
Yeah, he's in a zone of his own. But there's so many others that can win. The kid that won the Colonial,
out of the blue.
Yeah. And so that parity comes into these sports because so many more have gravitated to that sport more back in the day. Very few people. It's like Alex's deal with tennis. That's why he wanted to start a youth program with us 10 years ago, because his exact words to me were, Jimmy, I'm tired of tennis being perceived as a country club sport.
Yeah.
I want rackets in kids' hands just to introduce them to the game.
Yeah.
And that's what's happened is you've got more people with golf clubs in their hands and more people with tennis rackets in their hands. And the more that happens, whether it's a basketball or a football or anything else, that parity is going to enter into the mix because
I love
more
that.
people are playing that game.
The thing with Alex is just find something you don't have to be a Wimbledon champion or a U.S. champion like himself, but just something they can enjoy.
Lifetime sport.
Yeah, and he wants people to have some joy, and be nice about it and just have some joy. And if that's picking up a golf club or picking up a tennis racket, but just pick it up.
Well, anybody that goes and does that also has a new appreciation for that game because they figure out, well, this is not real easy.
Yeah.
They make it look easy on TV, but when you actually go try it and you swing your golf club for the first time, it's a little different.
Yeah. Tennis is in that same level. It looks so
Absolutely.
easy. And I don't know how they cover the court the way they do that.
Yeah.
Hey, today, as we tape this, as we talk about this, Kirk Gibson turned 68. I know. So Kirk Gibson, obviously, when is a famous Detroit Tiger, played football for the Wolverines at Michigan, or was it Michigan State? I don't want to. I might be messing that one up. Anyway, he was a football player, but an incredible baseball player. But what's special about Kirk Gibson? One of the most iconic moments in baseball when he walked up as a Dodger and hit that home run, and you have the great Vin
injured,
kind of limps to the plate literally, and then you have the great Vin Scully, coming up with the line, "I can't believe what I just saw."
Round in the corner, pumping his arm.
You're right. As far as, and that moves everybody. It moves you.
Yeah.
What was a moment that moved you in sports? I'm kind of catching off guard here, but as you watched it or something, because that is a historic moment in baseball that is part of the lore, and we all have those moments. What was one of yours?
I'll tell you one, and it hasn't been that long ago. It's been in the last 3 or 4 years. When Zach Toussaint hit that bucket at the end of the game to send us to the national championship game at WT, that was phenomenal. I was sitting in my living room by myself, nobody at the house but me, and I'm screaming. And Kim comes in, she goes, "Did we win?" I said, "Oh, hang on a minute." I said, "Let me roll it back and let you see the last 2 minutes of the game."
Yeah.
And she goes, "We got beat." And then Zach throws up that shot, and it goes in. And there's an irony in that piece too. And a lot of our listeners won't know who I'm talking about. But
Well, explain who he is.
so Zach Toussaint, young shooting machine, came to play with Tom and them at WT, and he was a 3-point shooting machine, about as pure a shooter as I've ever seen. Kendall Walling, way back in the day when we were growing up, was probably one of the purest shooters I ever knew.
Yeah, yeah.
And Hassan's one of those shooters.
Yeah, yeah.
But Zach doesn't look like he belongs on a D2 basketball court, but he does. And so we're in the national semifinals, and we're down 1 or 2.
West Texas is down.
And I mean, there's 5 seconds left, and the ball's going around. Doesn't look like we're even going to get a shot off it. Out that goes to the loop to Zach, and he gets a shot up over one of the Lincoln Memorial kids, and it goes in, buzzer beater. We're in the national finals. And the irony of that shot was the kid that tried to block that was Julius.
Wow.
He was playing for Lincoln Memorial and then transferred to WT the next year and came and played with us. But the irony of going back and watching that and seeing Julius is the one that was in the defense mode on that shot. I got to tell you another one, Lance, and this won't be the most popular one, but I just remember this because it was such a big deal at that time, is when O.J. Simpson broke the rushing record in the NFL.
Yeah, yeah. So
that was a big deal. It was in the snow, and it was, that was a big deal to go over that 2,000-yard mark. They fall, it was so publicized. And for the first time, somebody broke the 2,000 mark. I remember that.
No, that's a good one. The electric company, they weren't like going to win the
Oh,
Super
no.
or the
No.
NFC championship or anything like
No.
that. AFC championship, but yeah.
No, but they just to
That's
have
a good one.
Yeah, that's one I remember as a young person. Yeah, for sure.
The block with Jerry Kramer and Bart Starr scoring in the Ice Bowl.
Yep.
I was obviously a young boy at that time, so you don't really reflect on that, but that one really impacted football, and those guys for the rest of their lives. But that's a big one for me.
Yeah.
Obviously, being a Bronco fan, John Elway's whirlybird when he's getting tackled, it's kind of the John Elway goodbye, and I'll never forget that one. But the one that will stick with me forever is just watching the 1980 U.S. Olympic team.
Yeah, the hockey team.
And when they beat the Russians,
Yeah.
even though that wasn't the gold medal
No.
game, as many people kind of forget that.
Al Michaels.
Yeah,
They had
Al
the call.
Michaels. Yeah. Do you believe in miracles?
Yeah.
That one will always stick with me.
The other one I do remember, and I was because I was a Steelers fan, is the Immaculate Reception.
Oh, yeah.
Did he or didn't he catch that ball? Did it hit the ground? I don't know.
No one knows, do they? Or do they?
I always heard that he said
It hit.
when he passed, he would leave something that told the story. Now, whether that's true or not, I don't know.
Yeah.
But none of the camera angles ever caught
I
the
know.
bottom of football
Yeah.
like they have now. They didn't
Yeah,
have that replay system like they do now. But I remember that game very well.
And then it was tipped from a player to player. So for a while there, it
would
was
have been illegal at one
now.
time.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I remember that.
We had a personal one and a selfish one for me, is nobody cares but me. We had a rivalry when we played slow pitch softball. The Globe News played a lot of company slow pitch softball. We had a pretty good little team for the level we were in, way below the Jerry Branches playing in these travel leagues and hitting 48 home runs in one game or whatever. I don't know what that was, but anyway, they call us the Paper Boys. Okay, we were like with meat packing plant guys.
Yep.
So we were with the guys who work. We weren't with the IBM or the guys who own the money, get all the money. We played against the guys who were part of the company,
Who made those guys the money.
Yeah, climbed up the poles and fixed your electric lines, things like that.
Yep.
But they would call us Paper Boys. And we would shoot back. Well, we can't even deliver to your house because you can't read, things like that. It got pretty rough. Okay. But I will remember one, and I'm not even going to mention the company. We just had their number. Lucky as all get out, but we just had their number, Jimmy. And I'll never forget this. They have us. Okay. I think we're up 1 run, 13-12, as I recall. Bottom of the 7th, they have the bases loaded, nobody out. Slow pitch softball, that's a guarantee. 2 runs, 3 runs, whatever. The guy for their team hits a line drive, and he was one of their mouths, you know what I mean? And this has gone on for 5, 6 years. Tips off our pitcher's glove, okay? And I'm the shortstop. So I'm kind of going over the middle, to just reaction time. The ball happens to deflect like this way. Dive right to me. I catch it, flip it to David Cordes was the second baseman. Their guy's running because it's over.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean? When a ball goes up the middle, it's over.
Yeah.
Flip it to him and throw to first to the stunned, and then throw back to that guy who's off the base because the guy on second base, so for a triple play to end the game.
Wow.
Yeah. So individually.
Yeah, you don't forget those.
Though that was one of my favorite moments. So
Yeah, you don't forget those.
Hey, I had a couple other things for you today, if you don't mind. The Olympics is always near and dear to your and my hearts. We love the gold medals. We just love that, especially us growing up in that era where it was America versus the bad guys. You know what I mean? The Russians.
That's exactly what it was.
The Cold War. You know what I mean? Thing going on. But flag football, the NFL owners met last week. And among their decisions they came up with, obviously everybody was wondering most, what were they going to do with the tush push?
Yeah.
And they allowed that to continue, which I'm so happy. I mean, it's a football. Yeah. It's a play.
It is.
Stop it, whatever. But anyway, they also passed that their players are allowed to play flag football.
Oh, dang, I didn't hear that.
In the U.S. Olympics, for the United States if they want to.
Wow.
Yeah. So you could have a Patrick Mahomes back there against, whoever, England or whatever, Japan, whoever's going to be
smoke everybody.
The only thing is, I was going to ask you. You're the owner. I'm putting your Jerry Jones tag on you, and CeeDee Lamb wants to go out there and play, and this isn't the flag football, and thank goodness it's not. The flag football that Kids Inc. put out is a fun, clean game, pretty much overall.
Yeah.
The flag football they play, you get concussions, you get broken collarbones, you have no protection. Would you allow your players to play in a flag?
Not if they're on a contract of mine.
Ooh.
I don't think so.
It's the gold medal, Jimmy. It's the gold medal. Here's the thing: the NFL players of all sports have never had an opportunity to represent their country and then to represent it with a gold medal, silver medal, or bronze.
That's a tough call.
So what would you do?
As a non-owner, I'm all in. But if I'm that owner, that's a big scare. Man, I don't know. I would love to see it. Don't misunderstand me as a fan. I'd love to see it. But if you're asking me if I'm that owner, which that's not ever going to happen.
Yeah.
Man.
No, well, yeah.
What insurance company is going to let me buy a policy so that if this guy goes down?
None of them. None of them.
Yeah, that's what it comes down to. At that level, it comes down to the liability aspect of, then now what you'll start seeing is when they start signing their contracts. But if you participate in an Olympic sport and are injured there, your contract's null and void here.
And if the guy really wants the gold medal, his agent is going to say, but if the Olympics come around and I have a chance, I get a play in it.
It's going to be a stickling point in contracts going forward. I mean, that's what it all boils down to, is it's all going to boil down to the liability aspects of it.
Could you imagine having Patrick Mahomes, no pass rush, and you have like Tyreek Hill, CeeDee Lamb, like I said. You have all these wide receivers, the best in the world, and we aren't talking being pressed at the line either.
Mm-mm.
Can you imagine how good those guys will get?
Yeah. And
so I say let them play.
So the field, are they going to play the 5v5 version, or are they going to play the 7v7?
I really don't know.
Because Olympic flag football, as I understand it, and this has been part of our redesign on our complex, is, we've always played on basically an 80-yard field, if you will. It's 100 yards long, 80 yards to goal line with 10-yard end zones. But Olympic flag football and NFL flag football is played on a 70-by-30 field. And you play with a 25-yard midline and 25 yards to the goal line. And you have 4 downs to score, period. And we redesigned our fields based off the Olympic design.
Interesting. Yeah. Okay.
Number one, it's safe space.
Yeah.
And you can get more fields on the complex than we could with the 100x40s. But they're playing a 5v5 version. They're not playing.
I think that's what they'll play.
And
I
so-
really do.
And the reason they do that is because it takes the lineman aspect out of it, and it's
Yeah.
all skill player.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's more fast paced.
That's what they'll do. No linemen.
And so if that's what they're going to do, it'll be so fast paced, because we used to play 4v4 indoor in our indoor facility, and it was very fast paced.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because you don't have people wasting their time as a lineman. Everybody's a receiver, and everybody's in a pattern at all times. And you've got that, like you said, the quarterback that's usually sitting back there, kind of not much else to do but look. 'Cause
Yeah. No.
nobody's rushing them, but they'll in their game they'll have a timed rusher. You
Yeah.
have to be off the line a certain
Right.
amount of yards.
Yeah.
and
They
you
have a
can take-
timed rusher. Yes.
And
Yeah.
so it's a little more pressure.
One
than-
Mississippi, two Mississippi, whatever,
Yeah.
however you're going to count it. But yeah, the only guys I feel sorry for are the guys who have played the great sport of flag football and gotten very good at it,
Mhm.
and we're hoping, man, I wonder if, because it's been a trial sport in the Olympics. Hey, finally we have our chance, and now, are you going to pick like the best flag football quarterback of all time, or are you going to pick Patrick Mahomes?
Yeah.
Come on.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. And I think there's a young man from Hereford or somewhere that's really like on one of the top U.S. teams and has a chance to be on the Olympic team. And now,
Yeah.
I don't know.
That's crazy. I had not heard that from
Yeah.
the NFL owner or from the NFL owners.
What'd you think of the tush push, real quick? That's one thing.
I wasn't surprised.
It was 22-10, so they needed 24 votes against it.
It's kind of like anything else. If you're seeing it work, and we're talking about the Eagles, let's get
Yeah,
down
yeah.
to the.
We are talking about the Eagles. You're right.
Then learn to do it yourself.
Yeah,
If it works for them, figure it out and make it work for you.
yeah.
Um,
Well, what their concern was with the injury factor, and then I think the data was 3 people had been hurt,
Yeah.
but not like season-ending injuries
Yeah.
or anything like that. I don't want to say wrong, but the percentage was not accurate, what they were presenting as far as health issues over the play, and that's what they're always worried about.
I mean,
health issues.
it's an offensive play.
Yeah.
Don't mistake it. But here's what I take from that particular play. That's a testament of will between a defensive line and an offensive line.
Yeah,
And that's where in the trenches those games are won and lost. I mean, let's go back in history. The games are won and lost in the trenches.
yep,
There's a perfect example of a defense needs to figure out how do you defense against that play.
yeah,
There's a way, and there hasn't been a Buddy Ryan type guy that's figured it out yet. But somebody will, and they'll put a stop to it.
yeah.
But until they do, then the other teams just need to figure out, well, if it works for them, maybe we need to be doing it too.
Yeah, and Jason Kelsey, they actually had come in and talk about it to the owners, and I understand did a really tremendous job of just presenting the injury, what goes on, that it, and I think obviously he was for it because he's
Yeah.
a former Eagle, but I heard he did a really good job. But these owners, I did see a comment by him, Jimmy, that he was impressed how serious the owners were listening
Yeah.
and taking the
Well,
change.
it's been a big issue.
Yeah,
I mean, it was a controversial issue. Let's call it what it is. It's been somewhat of a controversial issue.
yeah,
And I didn't know the vote, didn't hear that I knew they had voted to keep it in. I'd heard that. I had not heard
yeah.
about the
A
flag
couple,
football
of
part.
little things just for our listeners and viewers. You can do it. You can perform an onside kick any quarter you want. You still have to announce it, rather than just wait till the fourth quarter. I like that.
Yeah.
I think a touchback is now coming out to the 35 if you don't kick within that rule thing. So they are keeping.
I'm tired of the kickoff thing. That's a waste of time. Just a waste of time.
So just go back to the old
Oh my
one,
gosh,
though, or
these
what?
kickers can kick 70 yards if you leave them alone. Just go put the ball in play and let's play ball. Go back, put it back on the 20 and let's play football again.
Okay, I like that.
I don't like the kickoff thing. Yeah, it's
Well,
just-
put it at the 10 then, or something.
Yeah, I mean, Do
and
away with
kick
that
off.
kickoff thing.
I don't like the new kickoff
That's
at
what
all.
I'm talking about.
Let's
Get rid of
let's
it.
put flags
Otherwise,
on the
let's go back to the old kickoff, kick it back there at the 20, and let's see what happens.
Yeah.
Because these kickers, I mean, my gosh, when you leave them alone, they can kick that ball.
I didn't know you were so opinionated about a kickoff.
I am. I'm talking about the new one. This
No,
new
I
thing that they're
know.
doing is the biggest waste of time.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's kind of like
And
overtime. I think.
There's too many guidelines to it, too many little rules thrown in with it. You know, football is a very simple game. Kick it off, tackle the guy, hand it off to him, tackle the guy, pass it to a guy. You know what I mean? A very physical, rough game. But what they've done is you have to kind of say, now, that was inside the 10. What's that rule again? Or that was didn't go out of the end zone but stayed in the end zone. What's that rule again, you know? And they're standing next to each other. From the purity of the game that we knew and loved, you know, I mean, I'm with you, though. We don't want them kicking him out of the end zone. Why even do it?
It's just a waste of time.
Yeah.
I mean, those.
Yeah. What's on your mind today?
I don't have anything specific. It's been interesting going back to the NBA thing, and again, I don't keep up with it a whole lot until this time of year. Is how serious this thing is for the big dollar NBA piece of the pie, because you know, not having the Knicks in that deal is money in the bank.
It's kind of like
money out of the bank for the NBA.
Yeah, I like that. Money out of the bank. It's kind of like when the Nuggets won. That wasn't real popular except for everybody in Colorado. You do have the MVP in Oklahoma City, which kind of puts eyes on that program as well, but it's just not what what we all thought it was. You know, what you expect. You want a Boston, LA. You want a Knicks, LA, or you want.
You were talking about a while ago. You were also talking about how good they are, and at this time of year, especially those professionals, and they're very good. Kim and I were at the house this weekend. We had two of the grandkids for the weekend, the young ones, and so we weren't going anywhere. We had a 2-year-old and a 4-month-old, so we watched a lot of TV.
Yeah.
And we turned the TV on, and the Liberty and the Fever were playing WNBA, and we ended up watching the whole game. Place is packed.
Yeah.
Of course, Caitlin Clark's on the floor. And Liberty won the championship last year. But we'd probably been watching it 10 minutes, and I looked at Kim and go, look how much better I mean, it was just like watching the NBA. There's a step up from college ball to that group of girls.
Women, the WNBA players are amazing what they can do. I don't like the tone right now being set.
Oh, no.
Let's tell it like it is. I mean, the racism cards being played a lot during the games, it seems like.
The Caitlin Clark target
the
stuff.
The hate on Caitlin, the other players, her coming in rather than embracing it.
Let me ask you this.
The NBA guys do embrace a great rookie. They really do.
Yeah, so let me ask you this. Does she whine too much?
Well, I think, but she's always whined.
Yes or no?
No, she doesn't.
I think she whines too much, and I'm a big fan of hers.
Yeah,
I'm a huge fan.
That's fair enough.
Her talent is beyond measure. She whines too much. She's always doing this.
Does she get fouled every time she comes down the floor? Yes.
No.
She's grabbed. Go back and replay. She's grabbed. They've got somebody holding the back of her shirt, and these aren't being called.
Yeah.
So her frustration level rises throughout each game. That's where the whining comes from. So let's call everything and let's see if she still whines.
I'm a big fan. Don't misunderstand. I'm a big fan of hers.
Yeah. Verbiage. Do we kind of control the verbiage that's being tossed at her by every team that comes up against her? I don't know. I don't know. There's a real hate for her among the WNBA players.
Yeah.
Which shocks me. Where I think other leagues, Shedeur faced a little bit of that with Cleveland, I would think. But as they say in the big boys, game respects game. And by that I mean good players respect good players. She's a great player.
Yep.
But I don't think she gets respect.
Beckers is playing well.
Yeah.
The
game has changed, Their salaries, I don't know if they'll ever reach what they think they deserve. But right now, it's the economics.
Yep.
Once the eyes are on the sport, once you're getting these big TV contracts, then your salaries will go up.
But all you had to do is look in the stands at that game the
Yeah,
other
that's
day, and
awesome.
it was packed.
Yeah. Indiana loves their.
That was packed.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah,
and
she's done a
so,
great job. That was a good one. Yeah.
But it was my point in the whole thing was they're really good. I mean, they're really good. They move the ball quick around the court. They're passing the lanes. Some of the passes they make are incredible. The big girls are very, very good. They're
Yeah.
not slow, and
It's a high skill level.
they're good.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
mean, my gosh,
Yeah.
they're really good. And there was a noticeable difference between a college team and a professional women's team, and I'd never really noticed it before until we ended up watching a whole game the other day.
I respect, and to that point, I respect like these other, like the other leagues in football. You know what I mean? But when you watch a game and there's nobody in attendance in a big stadium,
Yeah.
it's not a
It's
good
rough.
look.
No,
It's
it's-
not a
it's
good look.
rough.
There's no atmosphere at all.
Mm-mm.
Like you were saying, that there was a big atmosphere. So I'm not sure what to do with the minor leagues of football. But to play them in these big stadiums is stupid. Put them on TV, but why not put them in? Why not put them in an Amarillo? Why not put them in a smaller towns that don't have Division I college football and don't have NFL football, and see what happens?
Yep.
People may become
They might
like
gravitate toward it.
the
Yep.
Dillas. Nobody ever heard of the Dillas, but they were very popular around
Mhm.
here, So I think they need to reassess that and maybe go grassroots America and put these in towns that will support them, almost like minor league baseball,
Yeah.
and build those up.
You know, I really thought we might get one of those two baseball teams to win a state championship this year, and they just ran up against buzzsaws on both sides in Groover and Nazareth. I really thought Naz might get it done.
Yeah, they had you. I'm sure you heard, but their first game, and this is the best of 3 series. Their first game of a doubleheader that day lasted 3.5 hours.
Wow.
And then they had to turn around and play again.
Mm.
And at that level, you're going to lose your depth of pitching is critical.
Oh, it's everything.
It's everything.
It's everything at that level.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
and of course, I grew up in Dumas, and I remember that '71 team that
Yeah.
won
Still the last team that won a
last
state
baseball
champ-
team in the Panhandle.
Yeah.
That's hard to
Public
believe.
school, San Jacinto. Let's give them
Yeah.
credit. They won a baseball state
That's
title.
hard to believe
in
that
prep.
it's
Hard to
been-
believe.
been that long. I mean,
Here's how old it is. Look how old I am, and I've never seen a state championship,
yeah.
public school state championship.
And my dad coached
baseball.
those guys, and so
Wow,
Kim
Yeah.
McClintock became our 8th grade basketball coach, and
that's cool.
remember guys.
That's a
off
good
that
one to
team,
bring up, by the way. 71 is the
1971.
last time, like Hale Center, whatever you want to say, Lubbock North. Lubbock's obviously won them, but out just that line north, the 806 basically, that we call the Texas Panhandle up here, has not won a public school baseball state championship since the Dumas Demons in 71.
Yeah, well, that bunch was real special too. They won the basketball state
Yep.
championship, and most people don't know this. We lost either in the quarters or semis in football to Brownwood. Gordon Wood was coaching at Brownwood at that time, and we lost 14-7 and had 3 touchdowns called back.
Ooh.
Yeah,
So you could have that team.
they could have won all 3 that year.
I wonder if that's ever been done.
I don't know,
That's a good
but they won
question.
basketball.
I'll look that up. and
That
I'll
was
bring
Jim
that to the
Reed's
next
first year in Dumas.
one. Yeah.
He'd come from Kerrville-Tivy, where he'd won a state championship there, came to Dumas, won a state championship there, and then went to Ingram, had that Toby House kid,
Yep.
like 82, 83-ish, somewhere along
Yeah.
there,
Yeah.
and won another one there.
Yeah.
And then he was on that first Paladura team as a high school. So Jim Reed won 4 state
With
championships.
4 different places.
His daughter Gary was in my class. We're going to have a 45th reunion here in a couple of weeks because we didn't get to have our 40th because of COVID. And his daughter Gary was in my
That's
class,
pretty
and
cool.
our girls won a state
Did you help
championship.
organize that or not?
No, I got Lynn Davis, and there's a crew back home that handle all that. They'll call, and if I can help any way, I will. But now we've got people that do that. They're
So what do you guys just meet somewhere? Or what do
yeah,
you
we've
do?
got of course do it around Doggy Days. So everybody will meet at the barbecue on Thursday, and then Friday night we've got one of the restaurants everybody's going to meet up at, and then Saturday night we're at one of the event centers. And so there's people
That's cool.
that are there that kind of organize it,
My class,
and it's always the girls. It's not the guys.
Yeah,
The
yeah.
girls take care of it, and
Yeah,
let's give them credit where credit's due. They're the ones organizing all
My
that
class
stuff.
at our academy, we had a 10, we had a 20. We've done nothing since.
Yeah.
I'm trying to organize a 50 myself,
Yeah.
and I don't know where to start. So I may have to call
Our class was really close.
Yeah.
And I was really fortunate to be part of that group. And here's how fortunate. And I've got friends in the 79 class. We were class of 80. And I've got a lot of friends in that 79 class, and I converse with them pretty regularly. But I was less than 48 hours away from being in the class of 79, because back then you had to be 6 by September 1st. I was born at 4:30 in the morning on the 3rd. So, I mean, I was literally almost in another,
That's
in
interesting,
another
yeah.
class. And,
Yeah.
and I just was real. I would have never made it in that 79 class. That was they were animals. They were tough guys. I would have been such a wimp in that group. But our class was just really close, and I never have my ringer on.
That's all right. That's all right.
Ever.
Yeah.
Spam call. But yeah, I just have such a close affinity with the people I went to school with. And this is the one thing I'll say to people in their classes and when they have reunions. If we would have all just treated each other back then the way we treat each other now,
Yeah, it'd been so
life would
cool.
have been golden.
Oh, yeah.
You know, not that anybody was ugly to each other, but you know how it was. You know,
Yeah,
there, all the stuff.
It's not a competition every day of, you go to school.
I
It's just not a
spoke.
competition.
I spoke to the graduating class at Bushland High School in 2012.
Wow.
And one of my messages to them was, and there's like 35 to 40 of them in that class.
Yeah.
And this was at the Civic Center Auditorium.
Were you nervous?
No, not at all. Oh my gosh, not at all. And I said, all right, I need everybody to stand
Why
up.
wouldn't you be nervous talking to a?
No, not at all. So I
You
said,
don't get nervous in front of a speaker.
not if I'm in command of the subject matter. Now, if I got to get up there and I don't know what I'm talking about, yeah, I'm shaking in my boots.
Okay.
But no, here's the thing about being a graduation speaker. And I knew this going in. Quick.
Oh yeah.
I was
Yeah.
4 minutes, maybe 5 max.
Yeah, you knew that. That they love that for starters.
Oh, they're not there to hear me.
No.
And
they don't want 30 minutes of it either.
One of the reasons I was really excited to Ricky Davis, I don't know if you know Ricky or not, his son Dale coaches at Tascosa, and Ricky and I went to college together.
He wears a cowboy hat as the assistant soccer coach at Tascosa.
Dale.
Yeah.
He's a mess.
So when I introduced him,
Kim taught Dale.
So I'd introduce him as Cowboy Dale Davis.
Dale and I are pretty tight. We're big buddies.
Yeah. Hat, shorts.
Oh yeah.
Maybe one of the worst looks in the history of a coaching sideline. And
that's funny.
We're friends, so I can say that.
Yeah, he's great
so
kid.
good on the sideline.
Such a good boy.
Yeah.
But Ricky asked me to do this, and so I'm sitting up on stage. I'm sitting next to the valedictorian. She's a real sweet girl. So I get them all out there, and I said, they're in the front row. I said, I want everybody to stand up. So we got 2 things we got to cover here. Number 1, I want you to look around and look at all your classmates. I don't know, but all of you somewhere when you're making the look are looking at probably the person that's the most popular person in your class. Am I right? And they're all kind of nodding their head. I said, did you see them when you looked around? Everybody kind of nodded their head. I said, let me tell you something. When you leave here tonight, none of that matters anymore. You're all little fish in a big sea. And everybody's going to have the same opportunity as the person next to you in this world, because it's feast or famine in this world, kiddos. And I said, I'm just telling you, take a time to look around and make sure that you keep those connections with your classmates. That's first and foremost. And then I played a trick, because I've had a friend that I graduated high school with, grew up with, went from 2nd grade all through school with. Her son was graduating that night. And I told him, I said, we've got one last test that the Texas Education Association agency asked me to give y'all. It's a math test. And I need y'all to play along. And I said, audience, you can play along too. So I have this number game. Tell them to pick a number, and we go through this series of deals. And I said, at the end, and I held up a Kids Inc. T-shirt. I said, how many of you guys ever wore one of these? And, of course, all their hands go up. I said, well, class of 2012, and I flipped it around and had a 12 on the back. Congratulations. Well, the number that I ended up with my trick was 12. And everybody in the audience went, huh? So when they started and I told them to pick a number to start with, I said, make sure that if your mom is going to turn 50 here in about 2 weeks, and she's from Dumas, and she graduated in 1980, make sure you start with a small number. It'll just be easier for you. And I could hear Melinda out there. She was ready to kill me, but I called her out in the middle of that deal. But anyway, I played this number game, and it ends up on 12 for them.
Wow.
And that was pretty much my speech. It was just kind of a little levity for them, just to, be cool, but mainly just tell them.
What was the math trick?
So I'll do it for you. All right, let me.
Do I have to be intelligent on this?
No.
Okay.
No, let me just. Okay. So you pick a number.
Okay. Between anything or any
You can pick any number you want.
Okay.
I just tell people it's probably easier if you. Let me do it this way. Oops. Oh, my tablet went to sleep. So you're going to pick a number, and I'm going to have you double it. Okay. And I'm going to have you let's add 6.
Okay.
Okay. And divide it by 2
Okay.
and subtract the number you started with.
Okay. You're right.
It's 3.
How'd you do that?
Everybody has an ancient Chinese secret, and that was
Wow.
one. My friend
It
Lance,
was-
friend Lance Maddox's dad taught me that when I was
It
a
was
kid,
3.
and I never forgot it.
Wow.
So
Okay.
I
It was 3. That is spooky.
made that day end up on 12, so
That's
that
cool.
class of 2012, when I flipped that kid's
I like that.
T-shirt
I
around,
like that. Yeah.
had a 12 on it, and everybody in the audience was like,
I'm a little freaked out right now.
"Whoa!"
That's a whoa. That is a whoa. That's a wow. Is what
So
it
if
is.
you were listening and you played
Yeah,
along, everybody that listened should have ended up with a 3.
Wow.
That's all I got today.
That's what I did. I did. Man. Well, that was good. That was good. That's not the way I expected this podcast to end, but that's incredible.
I'll teach you off air.
All right. Okay. Yeah. Hey, also, there's big news coming the way of Amarillo that'll happen within 2 weeks that eventually we'll talk about on the Fieldhouse podcast. I'm just telling you. It has to do with sports. Okay. So speaking of putting Amarillo on the national map a little bit, like we were talking about maybe with a pro team, this will do that. So,
Good.
Yeah. Hey, anything else, Jimmy?
Nope, I always
I'm blown
appreciate you
away.
coming. I just appreciate you coming in. and
Oh, I
doing this.
enjoy it. I enjoy it, man.
This
That's the best thing. That's the best thing that happened to me today.
Well,
Okay,
you'll walk
and-
out of here. I don't ever teach many people this trick, but I'll teach you.
Okay. All right. I appreciate that. So, hey, we can't thank you enough for joining us today on the Fieldhouse Podcast. Want to remind you, it is a production of the Kids Inc. Sports Network. And like we always like to say, we will see you when we see you.